Hi, this is Rajit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Data Sutram.
Hi, this is Aisik. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Data Sutram.
So Aisik, Ankit and I, we met, three of us, we were college graduates. Back in our days, we were doing electronics, computer science. And at that time, I think we were doing a bunch of things together. And as one of them, we were working with a few companies in analytics. And we came across the entire piece of data science and data analytics. And for me personally, Harvard Business Review had taken this interesting tagline out saying data science is the sexiest job of the 21st century. And in college, that's what prompted at least me to jump into this domain. But very soon we realized that, when we are talking about data science and analytics, one of the pieces that stuck with us was external data. And the concept of external data comes from a very fundamental problem that today, if I'm a bank, I know Rajit as much as Rajit has declared to me. If I'm a e-commerce company, I know Rajit as much as Rajit transacts with me. But Rajit in itself has a lifestyle across multiple domains and multiple places, and there was no place where all of this information was coming together, and as a result, data scientists like us were facing a challenge to solve business problems because we never knew enough about our customers. And that's what prompted us to jump into this entire concept of external data. And as grads, we just started looking at the problem and started thinking, can we build a product? Can we solve this problem? And that's what got us started to Data Sutram. What do you think?
Yeah, I think mostly the inspiration was to solve the problem. We didn't know how. We don't know where would we get the money to start with. We didn't know exactly what we were solving in a very clear sense as well, right? What enamored us is primarily the challenge of solving something like that. And obviously through college, we had experiences across doing B plans to starting clubs to doing a lot of things between us, managing, organizing, getting a lot of people to jump on the bandwagon that we were trying to get on with. So obviously we had a great sense of combination between us, a great sense of camaraderie, which we were able to build different things across I think the 4 years of college. And at the end of it, we were like, we have to do something together, and this seemed probably the most reasonable thing to start with. But yeah, I think when we started, we had very little clue of what we were doing, where we are headed, but just the fact that we wanted to do something together, which has obviously shaped up to what it is today. Yeah.
So I think two things that I just remembered, and I think there are two learnings from the start to now. And even when we started, I think we had always decided these two things. Three of us, we never agreed on something, and that was, I think, the most important part about us being co-founders, because I think that helped us in this journey of looking at different perspectives and different thoughts. The second point was, we always decided that whatever it be, whatever it is, whatever the journey turns out to be, when we started, we said things should be so that we are at the end of the day always be able to come together and chill as friends the way we started. And I think good thing is that those two things have always helped us through arguments, understanding, helping us think through the obstacles, and as well as being able to tightly run this organization. Going forward, I think Aisik mentioned we didn't know where we'll get the money from, and honestly, we were in my grandmother's house back in Calcutta, and we had a bunch of other folks. We were around 5-6 of us. We were coding and
doing odd jobs to get some money.
We were making some websites, and we knew that we had to get money to run. We couldn't do this anymore. So at that time, I remember I had read an entire article about 100X, being launched, and at that time, it was a new fund. It was just starting. The entire concept was interesting, and amidst the X number of cold emails we wrote, one was to 100X. And I think the fun part was that the moment we had sent the mail, within 7 days, we were in Bombay, and I remember there was a cyclone happening, and we delayed our flight, and we had obviously very little money at that point of time to be able to come in. And I think the good part was that we flew in the day, we had an entire pitch session, and by the end we had to book our return flights. We had the check site.
Yeah. I think the idea was, when we came across 100X, I think we had very little understanding what even venture funding was, what investments were. The journey started with us being college graduates with very little understanding of what business means, what venture funding means, what startups mean, right? I think the word was not as popular as it is today as well, at least in the context and in the geography that we come from. But through the journey, I think the first day was about utilization. How do you, even if you have that money in your bank, we didn't know how to spend it. I think for a few weeks we were like, where do we exactly spend this money, right? And that's the journey that we took on as, I think, founders, which obviously taught us a lot of things. We burned our hands at doing a lot of different things, experimenting, right? Where we obviously had a lot to learn from the whole experience, right? Which is, I think, the most valuable thing that you can take away as a founder. Like the first day you see that money in your bank, you're like, great, amazing.
We haven't seen that many zeros that
time. In a bank account. Then the next thing is like, what do we do with this, right? So we again had our creativity in terms of being frugal. We learned a lot of things, and I think the most you can learn while spending the least amount of money is what I think the early part of our journey was primarily.
So in fact, today at Data Sutram, when we look back, today we are at a place where we are 75 people in the organization. We have raised around $6 million plus of funds. We are working with some of the very top names in the banking and financial sector domain in India. We are clocking a million plus revenue run rate. And for us, the focus area is broadly, being able to build a enterprise platform which is powered by external intelligence. So in fact, one of the major focus areas in banks that we are today tackling is how do we help financial institutions achieve sustainable growth. The word sustainable comes very interestingly because today, as we are emerging into the entire digital banking and the digital financial world, knowing your customer becomes supremely important. And what we are doing is we are triangulating information from multiple places, and we are able to create intelligence on every customer based on just a phone number. And that goes from either being able to help a bank or a financial institution understand who's a fraudulent prospect, who's a premium prospect, where they should cross-sell, upsell, how they can hyper-personalize their offerings. The crux of this journey has been that when we started back in 2019, this was not very crystal clear in our minds. We knew we were doing external data and that we are still doing. The core has remained. But what has happened is, if you see, the problem statements have sharpened. So what are we? So when I started, I said we were helping enterprises understand our customer better based on an external. The first, when we say problem statement, we also realized how that translates for value for a end enterprise. So for example, for a bank, that information might be to understand who's a potential fraud. That information might go into understanding who is a potential premium customer. And it also goes into actionable. So I think what we have learned in that journey is sharpening problem statements as much as possible, going into the nitty-gritties of it. B, identifying your target audience. It's very important to have a niche when you're starting and when you're building. You can build for the world, but the start has to be with a niche. That was the second biggest learning. I think the third very important perspective from a business model was also, how do you go from creating and increasing value? Now, when we started, our pricing model was based on data. So we were charging, on a basis where we were charging at a per data point basis. But that eventually evolved into a value-based pricing, where we said that we will charge you a percentage of the value you get. And that itself is a big journey in our business model. If we started with value-based pricing, we would not have been able to crack the market. So I think the entire journey is important. You cannot skip the journey, especially as first-time founders. And I think the journey also is about that creating that value. So when we go back and sell the same commodity at a higher market value, because the value of the commodity has been established, I think that's what gives at least me the kick from a business perspective, that how do we increase the value of a commodity by establishing the value against a problem statement. And I think what has happened over the time is the entire evolution of a B2B enterprise build. When we started off, we didn't know what enterprise sales is, we didn't know what B2B is, and for a change, I actually like the fact that we did not know, because there was a lot of things that we reinvented, there was a lot of change that we brought in that our competitions could not bring, and it's because we did not know what was market standard, so we created a standard. And I think that's where this journey has culminated into, and which I'm at least very grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think B2B enterprise SaaS is a separate beast, not very well understood in the universe of startups that at least the Indian ecosystem has seen, right? So for us, everything was a new learning, right? And end of the day, I think the product itself has gone through its journey. We have had design partners, we have had failures, we have had successes, and in that journey of going from your early innovators to your laggards, we have actually understood what a product's life cycle looks like. And I think that's what makes products built to last, which is again something that was very important as a learning, because when we started, we were like, okay, we are going to do this for 2 years. 2 years later, it was like we're going to do it for 3 more years, and I think after 4 years now we are like, okay, we have to do this for another decade or so. But I think that's how generational businesses, enterprises of value are built. They are not built overnight, they are not built over years, they are built over decades, which I think was something of, I think that novices that we were, it was alien to us that something would take a decade to build. But again, I think that's probably we would not have jumped into this if we knew that maybe on day one. But that's, I think, looking back and looking forward are two different completely.
I think that's a very important line, and I think if I knew how many risks this journey had and how many points of failure this journey had, maybe we would have never started. But I think the fact is that my point being that right now, since I've gone through that journey, I have more confidence, and I also feel that when you're starting up, not knowing things is the best thing that can happen, because it helps you have that courage to actually go through the entire process and emerge out successful, because I wouldn't have my last 5 years anyway else than it was. And it's, I think, the beauty. I think from a vision perspective, as an organization, at Data Sutram, our perspective is to build for the world from India, is to make external intelligence accessible, to make hyper-personalization accessible. And I think, again, one of the things that keeps us motivating and keeps us going is that how do we really make a data-driven world where data is no longer just for the data scientists, but data and insights is for everyone.